80% of sales professionals give up after touchpoint 2. Consistency and just adding value. If you can focus on those two things, after 2 months, you've already beaten out 80% of your competition.
Today's guest is an amazing lady who has co-founded multiple businesses. Welcome, Laura Colt.
Value and customer service leads to sales over cold calling.
She's got over 17 years recruitment experience and over 7 years training recruiters.
I wish every agency honoured the prep and the research as much as they did the actual outgoing calls. The better the plan, the better the execution. We should really be focusing on quality over quantity.
She now specialises in helping recruitment agencies scale. In terms of what you think recruitment agencies should focus on in the next 12 months when it does come to business development, what would your advice be?
2024 was just like a big old question mark.
A year into my business, I was flat broke. I had $400 in my account, no pipeline, and I was close to giving up. Then a friend dragged me to a free marketing summit. I didn't expect much, but I left with one strategy that changed everything. A week later, I sold $45,000 in retainers. There was no grind, no guesswork, just the right plan. And that's when it hit me. This industry doesn't need more hustle, it needs better strategy. And that's what this show is all about. The Be Rare podcast is for recruiters who've had that "what the F am I doing" moment and know that there's a better way. You'll learn how to earn more whilst working less and build a business that gives you actual freedom. I've used these exact strategies to generate over $20 million in billings while living life on my terms. And now I'm handing them to you. Hit subscribe because the bigger this show gets, the more I'm able to pour back into it and into you as well. And also a huge thank you to JobAdder for making this possible. I'll touch more on that later, but let's get into the show. Welcome, Laura Colt, to today's episode.
No, thank you so much for having me. I am really happy to be here.
No, thank you so much for being a guest. And I'm really excited to have you here because we're going to be talking about the number one topic that is on most recruiters' mind, and that is business development.
Absolutely. And it's pretty much all that I have trained on in the last 18 months. Aside from a couple of other things, but I know it's been a real focus for agencies over the last 18 months or so. And I spend my days talking about it.
Amazing. Well, I'm so excited to tap into your wealth of knowledge. But before we do that, we've actually got a really exciting update to share with you guys. So Laura and I have recently created a partnership. It actually started in a really funny way, to be honest. On paper, we thought we were competitors, but we kind of connected through LinkedIn. We had a few mutual connections. And what we realized is whilst on paper we're both trainers, we have totally different programs for totally different target audiences. So we decided, why not kill all the birds with one stone and partner and basically help our clients at any stage of the sales cycle, any stage that they may need. So Laura, I'll let you give a bit of insight around your story and what you specialize in.
Absolutely. So as Jess said, I have spent the last 17 years in agency recruitment, the last 7 years training and developing recruiters. And it really has developed over that time. I started working with agencies on developing rookie programs and new recruiter programs, and then started running more senior advanced workshops. But then where I actually realized there was a bit of a niche is actually supporting agencies with their whole L&D strategy so that any external training actually lands and becomes part of the fabric of the organization and can be related back to career pathways and competency frameworks and how we actually move recruiters through from being a junior right up to wherever they decide to go on their leadership journey. So over that time, it's kind of scaled out into more project support with recruitment agencies, actually looking at their L&D health function, onboarding, induction, and then layering training and development into that. And we actually, Jess and I connected because I started following Jess's content on LinkedIn and loved what she was doing and was getting so much value from it myself. And then, like you said, we exchanged a few messages and realized that we actually focus on really different, I guess, parts of the journey for a recruiter. So, I'm absolutely delighted that we can start to give clients more of a full service offering. And I've actually got someone to refer people to at the very beginning of potentially opening their agency or launching a cold desk.
Absolutely. So just so the readers are clear, at what point do you take over the process when it comes to training?
Yes. So my jam is typically when an agency wants to grow and they need to put in the processes to grow, and they're looking at how they attract and onboard and actually support people within their careers. So I would say my sweet spot starts at that kind of 3 to 5 people. And when agencies are really positioned for that growth, and then your kind of boutiques that are established and your mid-size agencies. And that might be supporting them with workshops, getting that objective and that external point of view. But it also, like I said, might be that more project focused work of actually, we really want to look at the way that we onboard, induct and bring people through our organization so that we can give them a career path. So it's that kind of 5 people boutique medians that are really looking to get serious about their L&D and HR functions, essentially.
Amazing. Honestly, I'm so happy to partner with you, because where my training kind of cuts off is where businesses want to scale.
Yeah.
So for anybody listening to this, for the context of what I help with, I predominantly help businesses on the very front end set up their agency, set up processes, set up strategies, in particular generate leads, because that's the entire functionality of the business. If we don't have the leads, we don't make any money. So I help people generate leads, I help people market themselves, create a brand, and I help you hire your first 1 or 2 staff. Usually we go with a VA typically, and then hire a resourcer. But ultimately I help people on that front end, everything they need to get set up and to start making their first 50 to 100k per month consistently, so that then they can scale. And it's at this point, Laura is the person who's going to take over and help with that scaling and really implement amazing processes and roll that out team wide. And also Laura helps with the delivery function of each and every consultant as well. So where my pillars are is lead gen, agency startup, and marketing yourself and branding as well. So that's how our services are going to tie in really nicely together. And we've already got a few partnerships happening, and really
it's just been so nice, hasn't it? Being able to problem solve and strategize that with a client, and then being able to give them options, okay, like, because I will always let a client know, okay, I just don't think I'm best placed to help you. But then it's so nice to be able to go that next step and be like, but this is what you need. And I think through my networks and through the people I engage with, I often do end up having conversations with people who are either looking at going out on their own or have recently gone out on their own, and they want some accountability, they want some coaching support. And every single one of those conversations comes back to they need help kind of getting it started. And that's just not my forte. Whilst I've done it, I did it in a very different market. It was 10 years ago when we launched Lotus People, right? So, and I am now like a one-woman band in training. It's a very, very different audience. And so to have someone to hand over those people to is amazing. And we're just having a lot of fun, aren't we, as well? Like being able to spend this time together. And we've got a couple of plans potentially coming up this year for some other really exciting collaborations as well. So, yeah, it's really awesome.
We do. I'm definitely excited for some announcements around some events, both virtual and in person as well. So we really, between us, want to become that source of truth within the recruitment industry to help you overcome any problem at any stage of running your business or your recruitment career as well. So that's ultimately our partnership, and both of us are very aligned in our values. That was one of the reasons we decided to partner, because if I genuinely can't help somebody, I'm very honest. I don't try and force something and pretend I can do something I can't do. And Laura has the knowledge and the know-how to do the parts that aren't my forte, and vice versa. So that's why I'm really excited as well about this, because hopefully if you guys come to our events, we'll be able to just cover the full cycle. Whatever you need, we're the people, we've got you.
360. And I think as well, like I think where we have that real alignment as well is on offering value, right? It's not, in a recruiter's career, and especially in this market in the last few years, it's that value-based approach to your business development, to selling, to any part of the recruitment process. And I think, that was a real key piece of that alignment for me with you, is that I feel like we both run our businesses with that in mind. We both want to offer that to our clients, and we want to see recruiters offering it to their clients and candidates too. So that was really, really important, I think, for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so happy to be partnered with you.
Me too.
What I was also looking to tap into today is your knowledge around business development.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you think recruitment agencies should focus on in the next 12 months when it does come to business development, what would your advice be?
So it's 2024 was just like a big old question mark, right, for most agencies. And I think there's still a lot of question marks around what this year is going to look like. But we are seeing, I think, some return of the market. I'm hearing a lot of positive sentiments from my clients. So there's a couple of things I think, three things that I think. The first is getting really watertight on your existing accounts, because as things start to pick up, that's where we're going to get the majority of our work from, right? We really want to safeguard what we've already got. So I'd be looking at your business development from the regard of safeguarding your existing accounts, looking at expanding those existing accounts, looking at where you can cross-sell, looking at where you can spot other opportunities, and also actually conducting service reviews with your existing clients. Like, are you protected? Is there anything else that they need? Is there anything that you're not doing? And it's like this analogy of, clients aren't going to complain unless it's something bigger, right? But that doesn't mean things can't change and shift and you can't make the partnership better. So I'd be really looking at getting into your existing clients, forecasting and pipelining with them for the next 6 to 12 months, looking at what talent they're going to need, taking feedback, giving them market updates, really safeguarding and protecting what you've already got and looking to expand there. And then the second thing I would be saying is that just getting really, really clear business development strategies in place, looking at that new business piece, looking at how you're market mapping, looking at how you're supporting your teams to do that, because I still feel like this year is going to require a lot of new BD, and getting your consultants really up to speed with that. And then I think later in the year where we're going to see a bit of a shift is into that talent pooling space again. And whilst we don't typically think of that as business development, ultimately it is. That attraction of candidate piece is still BD. We need to be looking at how we're talent pooling and engaging with a passive candidate audience, because so quickly the market just switches. And then what will happen is 2026, everyone will start asking me for talent pooling training, candidate strategy training, candidate attraction training. So if you want to get on the front foot with that, I would say in kind of 6 to 9 months, you really need to start putting your attention and your energy around how you are talent pooling and actually looking at how you're supporting your candidates. And I think that is a real missed opportunity as well for recruiters, of thinking about that candidate life cycle and thinking about how your candidates are becoming your clients and taking that long-term approach to getting a really strong talent pooling strategy in as well.
Yeah, absolutely love it. I can't tell you the amount of conversations I have to do with keeping both plates spinning at the same time, because people will try to pipeline all of their candidates at once or all of their clients depending on current needs. But I always say an hour a day of the opposite, because that's going to enable you to build consistently in your pipelines. And of course, as you know, massive advocate for personal branding, because personal branding is a way to nurture these people continuously so that when the time is right, they're there and they know who you are and you've got that brand awareness as well. So that's something I definitely advise to my clients. But I would love what you advise clients in that sense as well, of developing leads, whether it's clients or candidates. But what would you advise when it comes to actually building your new client base?
Yeah, I think what the most underestimated piece of this is the time that you need for research and prep and really investing in developing a strong leads funnel. And I think when you're new to tools, new to opening an agency or establishing a client base or whatever it may be, it's very easy just to be thinking in the here and now. And so anyone who's kind of at the front end of that, and I think this is, so amazing about the work that you do with people, is the structure. And actually think about, like, what is going to be my process here? What are going to be my KPIs around this? How much time am I going to spend on this? What does that look like? Do I have a bit of a rhythm for it? And getting really clear on what that looks like. Because when things get busy and you are then recruiting and speaking to candidates and going out on client meetings, doing all of that stuff, if you don't have a robust system in place, then it will drop off. And exactly as you said, recruitment, it's such a full-bodied job that it requires so many plates spinning at once. And if you're not nurturing all of those plates and one falls off, you've got to start all over again to pick it back up. So I would say anyone who's at the very beginning of that journey, I would really actually document out, what is my leads funnel going to look like? What is that call cycle going to look like? How do I even start that? What do I do on a weekly basis to navigate that? What tools do I need? What automations do I need, or integrations do I need? How do I want to look at branding myself, and get that stuff really consistent first, because that stuff will be the backbone of everything you do. And what it will do as well is stop you having these really up and down months. And we see this when there's a lack of consistency in business development, right? It's like amazing month, and then a complete donut month, and then like a kind of okay month, and then amazing month. And this is what we see, this unless you're running a temp contract desk with perm, this pattern we see is typically due to a lack of consistency at the front end with your lead generation. So I think it really needs to come down to a robust strategy and getting clear on what that looks like, and setting yourself KPIs that you meet every week.
Yes. Oh, you're speaking my language.
No, I mean,
this is exactly what I'm like to people. They're like, I want to generate leads. I'm like, how do you do it? And then we look at actually the systems behind generating leads, because if you don't have the consistency, it just won't work. Yeah. So it's all about those processes and systems. So yeah, totally agree with you on that. Next question would be, I'm so curious to know, because you speak to hundreds of recruiters every single month, and what's the one thing that they just don't know? It's not common knowledge, but you really wish that they knew.
Oh, like there's so many elements to the recruitment process, isn't there? So let me just pick two things. The first is that research is BD. And I have this conversation all the time. There's so much guilt for people around spending time stepping back and looking at their BD strategy and market mapping and, all the CRM admin that comes with this, and spending time on your LinkedIn branding and your posting. And I really try and work with people on that mindset of like, that's still your business development. And I think it's drilled into us from, 20, 30 years ago, and certainly when I started my recruitment career, of like, your time on the phone is your BD time. Everything else needs to happen around that. But the only bit we care about is the actual time on the phone. And I think things have changed so much that I wish every agency honored the prep and the research as much as they did the actual outgoing calls, because the better the plan, the better the execution. And, we should really be focusing on quality over quantity. You could make 10 phone calls in a week, but if they've been researched and targeted and those leads have been warmed up through value adds and all of this stuff, 50% of those might convert into a client meeting. You can make 50 cold calls and, 2% of them can convert. And so I think it's getting people in the mindset that business development actually encompasses all of this stuff and the strategy behind all of this stuff. And I think the other thing ultimately is, this value piece. I wish, I would love for every agency to be in the mindset of value and customer service leads to sales over cold calling, and really thinking about what you're putting out into the world rather than just thinking about what you're getting back. And it's hard, right? Because I know most recruiters need to focus on the here and now, and we're focusing on this month's billings and this quarter's billings. But when we take more of this long-term mindset of the work I'm doing today will pay off in 3 to 6 months, that's when we can kind of like chill a little bit and focus more on, okay, my job is just to put good things out into the world, value, to connect with people, to show them demonstrate what my service would look like. That's my job. And in 3 to 6 months, it will pay off. And there's a statistic that I think is still current, but it's something like 80% of sales professionals give up after Touchpoint 2, or something around that, right? So really, consistency and just adding value, if you can focus on those two things, you know, after 2 months, you've already beaten out 80% of your competition who potentially did a couple of cold calls, didn't get anything out of it immediately and disappeared, right? So I think focusing on that research, focusing on the quality, focusing on what you bring rather than what you're getting, that over the next 12 months, if I could see every agency doing that, I think we could almost shift the perception of the industry. You know, it's so key to the work that we do.
Let's be real, recruitment isn't what it was 10 years ago. Clients expect more, candidates expect everything. And if your systems are clunky or manual, you're already 10 steps behind. That's why I use JobAdder. It's built by recruiters for recruiters, and over 4,500 agencies across ANZ use it to ditch the admin, automate the boring rubbish, and actually scale smarter. Whether it's AI, integrations, or automation, JobAdder frees up your time to focus on what actually matters, and that's making money and also placing great people and growing your business. If you're ready to stop hacking things together and start operating like a proper business, go to jobadder.com/Kimber and grab your first 2 months completely free. I only back tools that save time and money or give you freedom, and JobAdder does all free. Now back to the show. 100% agree. I always have conversations with recruiters and I say it's better to have 100 people in your active list and have 5, 6, 7 touch points than it is have 10,000 people and call them all once. And there was this guy I spoke to recently on LinkedIn. He actually commented on a post that I had about cold calling, and he basically was going against me, very old school recruiter. You know, he was vouching for how amazing cold calling is. And basically what he was saying is, I don't know why recruiters are so afraid. Nobody ever remembers the cold call anyway. There's nothing to be afraid of. And I said, but that's the point.
That's the issue.
You're just repeating something nobody remembers 1,000 times, just waiting for that one thing to stick. And I'm like, surely there's a smarter way for you. Like, wouldn't you rather be remembered? Wouldn't you rather these micro interactions be remembered again and again and be valuable to people? He disagreed, but I was like, not my ideal client. So
yeah, he is not in my target market. And it's funny, isn't it? And you know, I think that's a really nice sentiment to share with rookies, of like, you can fly under the radar a little bit. It takes the fear away for them for BD, but 100%, like, the aim is to be remembered, to start to slowly get in people's subconscious and people start to recognize your brand with quality. And, you know, this cold calling piece, and I know that we both agree on this, it's not that you don't do calls. It's just that they're not cold anymore. That's the beauty of it, right? That they're warm, that people know you, that it feels a little bit more familiar, or at least you can say, hey, you know, I connected with you. I sent you through this. Did you have a chance to have a look at it? Like, it's so much warmer. Wouldn't you prefer that out of your conversations rather than, no, we haven't spoken before, but, you know, it just doesn't land with clients anymore. They don't, it's not what they want. It's not what they're looking for.
Absolutely. And having that trigger point and the reason to call be invaluable. Did you get a chance to look at that video I sent? Did you get a chance to look at that salary survey? Did you get a chance to do XYZ? How much more valuable is that instead of, hey, I saw that ad on Seek. Can I work on the job? When 20 other recruiters have done that. So whilst I think Seek ads can work and ad chasing can definitely work, especially if you've got a candidate or you run a temp desk, there's so many more ways that you can do it. You've just got to get creative. And actually, something which I teach is 20 reasons to call. And recruiters are always like, what do you mean there's 20 reasons to call? Don't I just chase ads or ask how their recruitment's going? I'm like, there's so much more. We need to get strategic. So,
and like all of those things, like, they're still valid, right? It's just at what point in the process you do that.
Yeah.
And something I've been speaking to agencies a lot recently about is like the difference between like your hot leads and what I would call hot leads and prospect leads, right? And your hot leads are ad chases, candidate lead gen. But the issue with your hot leads is that you're only ever coming in when the process has already started, right? You have no control, there's no trust, there's no relationship built. And whilst it's a great opportunity to break into a new client, it's also not setting you up for success, and that massively impacts your fill rate. What we want to also be focusing on is that prospect lead generation, the market mapping, so that you're having conversations with people before they need you.
Yeah.
And so when they do need you, you are the person they reach out to, and you can run a really solid process. And I think you have to take a blended approach, but it's not the only way. And it just can't be the only way anymore, because like you said, 20 other people have called already.
Yeah.
You know, what makes you stand out if that's the first point of contact that someone's having with you?
Absolutely. And we're almost triggering our prospect subconscious reflex to say no as well. Many people, when they feel like they're getting a sales call, or they perceive it to be a waste of time, or perceive it to be uncertain or unknown, their reflex is actually not what they mean. Their "I don't, just send me an email," or "I don't use agencies" is actually not what they mean. Maybe they do somewhere, but they think they're being sold to.
Yeah.
You're never going to get through to them at that point. And it's so much better to have that level of familiarity, have added value a ton of times. And then when you call, even if they have no needs, the conversation in my experience is usually, "Jess, I've got no needs, but thank you so much for that post or that webinar or what you did here, or I've seen you on LinkedIn, or love what you're doing over here." And I'm not saying that to brag about how great my stuff is, but the conversation's different. People actually are like, "Oh no, but I've actually got a question about this," you know? And I'm like, okay, well, that's a good way to open the partnership. And then in the future, when there is a need, right place, right time, because they continuously see the content that I put out, or the email marketing, or whatever way that I nurture my audience. But there's just so many different avenues. And I think with technology, whilst there's pros and cons to everything, technology and social media has actually enabled us to broaden our horizons when it comes to lead generation. So getting creative and thinking about our audience, how do they make buying decisions as well? Do they make it through cold calling? Do they not? What does that look like? And really unpacking that is going to be the key, and actually looking at it on a desk by desk basis as well. There's not one size fits all strategy.
Yeah, and like we were talking about before we jumped on, like it is so different depending on your industry sectors, whether you're working temp or contract or perm. There does have to be this personalized approach, right, to what actually works in your industry with your client demographic. And I think as well, what I really try and instill in people is, like, you also have to do it in a way you enjoy. So if you don't want to run webinars, if that is your idea of hell, that's not one of your things, right? But if you love creative writing and you think you could develop a really useful newsletter, then you do it that way. And so it doesn't have to then be that you have to be doing all of these things. It's like you get to pick and choose what happens at the front end that enables you to make warmer calls, but you do it in a way that you enjoy. So you look forward to it. And then it's that positive reinforcement, and people will buy from you over time. And I think a big part of that is having trust, isn't it? In like what you're putting out will start to pay off, and you're not going to see immediate. I mean, you definitely will get quick wins, but you don't want to rely on just seeing immediate results, picking up jobs today, right? It's about building these relationships and building a really sustainable desk for the long term.
Absolutely agree. On that, let's just say you were going back into agency and you had 6 months to build a cold desk from scratch.
Yeah.
What exactly would you do during that first 6 months?
Oh my goodness. I would fully map out and research my market. I would spend at least a month doing that. Right. And this is obviously like being given free rein to do that, like I know it doesn't always work that way, but I would want my market fully mapped out. I would want to be connecting with people on LinkedIn. I would be creating value adds that I could pipeline and use monthly to start to build that funnel. I would look at what my LinkedIn branding strategy, I'd overhaul my profile so that it really spoke and resonated with my audience. I would get those value adds ready. I would start connecting with people. I would start sending out value adds, and then I would build my call cycle off the back of that. So, that initial contact would always be for me via LinkedIn or wherever I was finding my clients and my candidates. I would start the values piece. And then I would build a really, really consistent call cycle that could be managed through the CRM. And I would have a consistent monthly touch point with all of those points of contact. I honestly would spend the first couple of months doing that, setting that up, getting that rocking and rolling, start having conversations with passive candidates with what we were doing, looking at that brand building piece with candidates as well, with the view of the work will come, right? And giving people time for that work to come. But I think I would spend a lot more time now than I ever did when I was building cold desks to actually really establish my game plan and put in place those KPIs and really get the research done, because once you're busy, you just don't have the time to do that anymore. So yeah, I think it comes back to that research and market mapping piece for me, and getting all those juicy value adds lined up so that you can really focus on the quality.
Absolutely agree. I was actually speaking to a client the other day, and he gave an analogy along the lines of, if you're going to build a building, you don't just start putting the bricks in place. You actually, 80% of the time is in the design, the construction, how it's all going to piece together, and then putting the building together. And building the building is the easy part. And that's exactly how I see building a desk as well. If you're really thorough on that front end, you know who's who in the zoo, you've got their contact details, you've got it mapped out, you've got it imported into your system, you know your exact messaging in the market. All you then need to do is keep repeating that with the touch points, hitting your 5-6 touch points, and that's the way that you can build a desk.
Absolutely. And I love that analogy so much. And I actually use it with newer recruiters that I'm working with. It's that, you know, I kind of draw it on this really rudimentary graph system, but it's like, you think that, you know, you kind of start here and you're immediately going to see results, but you don't. It takes a few months of like putting the work in, building the foundations, and then suddenly you kind of pop out and you go, oh, now I'm seeing the fruits of my labor. And so it does come back to that, having trust that it will come, but the designs have to be put in place, the foundations have to be laid. And it's like the same, you know, when you walk past building sites, and there's one right next to our house at the moment. It has looked the same, you know, for the last 3 or 4 months, and now suddenly there's a building there, you know, and that didn't happen overnight. That happened through months and years of planning and research. And I think that piece is so overlooked with the pressures to perform straight away. And whilst I understand the needs of that, you know, on a senior strategic level from P&L, giving people that time will make them so much more consistently successful in the long run. So much more.
Amazing. And what would you say is the number one piece of advice that you could give recruiters that's going to help them accelerate their results right now? This episode's nearly wrapped, but before you head back to pounding the phones or chasing cold leads, let me read you a message a student sent last week. He said, Jess, I made $42,000 from one LinkedIn post and a single DM. No follow-up, no cold call, it just landed. Now, this kind of result isn't luck, it's leverage. And that exact system, plus a whole lot more, is broken down step by step inside my school community. If you're ready to seriously grow your desk without burning out and start building the kind of brand that brings business to you, I'll see you inside. Just search Jessica Kimber School or click the link in the show notes. If this podcast is your vibe, our group was made for you.
The number one piece of advice to accelerate your results, I think it's got to be, I think it's mindset. I think it's how you feel about BD. I think that infiltrates everything. How you look at your desk, how you feel about rejection, how your resilience is. Are you enjoying how you're doing business development? Do you have your game plan? Do you feel confident in it? Do you trust in what you have to offer? Because I think if you don't believe in what you offer, you know, you have a fear of rejection. All of these things are going to impact the way that you show up, right? And so I think it's about really being honest with how your mindset sits, with how you actually feel about BD. And whether you're telling yourself the story that it's a necessary evil, or whether you start to build a story that is, this is the way I do it because I enjoy doing it this way. And I think that is a fundamental difference between recruiters who are consistently successful and not, is how they actually feel about what they're doing from a business development standpoint, and how they actually feel about it, and then how they show up with it. But I think that mindset piece, and when I'm running group training sessions around business development, that's where we typically start, right? And everyone has their own blocks, but it's actually going like, what's blocking me from doing this in a way that really fills my cup, as opposed to is just a part of the role that I kind of don't love. And, you know, we see it all the time with experienced recruiters that suddenly BD actually becomes the really fun part of the job. And suddenly they're really excited by the challenge of that. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it's tried and tested and you've seen results from it. But I think it's because you start to believe in what you do and what you have to offer, and you start to hold yourself to that you're not going to put everyone on a pedestal as better than you, and you do actually have some value to offer because it's tried and tested. And so how quickly can we instill and embed that mindset in recruiters and people opening their own agencies to really get them doing it in a way that they enjoy, that speaks to them, and that works for them, because it will be so different for everyone depending on your personality. You can apply the same structure and principles, but you need to do it in a way that really fills your cup.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much, Laura. I really, really appreciate you being on the Be Rare podcast. How can people connect with you if they want to speak? Is LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn, yeah, connect with me, ask me any questions. I try and check out a lot of value from my LinkedIn, whether it's through mini training videos or checklists and templates and cheat sheets. So yeah, connect with me there. Hopefully we'll be connecting in person at some events soon with some of the stuff that Jess and I have in the pipeline.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.